viewers and me, Queen Nightmare, I would like to ask you a question in the beginning of the video. What is the Drarry story that happened? It ended in a Draco taking his own life. I can't think of the story at all. Someone asked me about it, and I could only remember the picture that I heard it from. I can't remember the title of it. It's the picture of Draco facing away. He's on the bed. He's like, he has his bare back towards you and his arm out. I can't think of that story, what it's called. And they want to know, link it down below so that person can find it. I can't find it, even though I looked really hard for it. It's probably under all that other Drarry stuff. But, big but here. You know, it happens. So today we're going to read the Drarry story. And it's going to be on chapter 7. Wow, we're about halfway through this already. Harry's POV. Oh, by the way, I saw someone's comment that was removed, and then someone said, I literally want them to fuck already. I went, honestly, same, but, you know, that can't, they don't even know that. I want it to have a truth or dare. Chapter 7, Harry's POV. I awoke early in the morning to the sound of the dormitory door closing with a quiet creaking sound. Malfoy was leaving. I guessed. It was probably so he didn't have to confront me about last night. I glanced at the clock on my bedside table. It read 7:30 a.m. Perfect. I realized suddenly that I didn't have a headache. I drink enough of that dodgy drink to be at least a little hungover. But I felt nothing whatsoever. My thoughts had been so fragmented last night. I could barely recall anything after the third round of Scrabble against Blaze. For some reason, I had a very clear image of those blazing silver eyes I had been glancing at a lot recently. I wondered suddenly, had I spent any time looking at Malfoy last night? I wouldn't remember if I had, but the thought was chilling. Why is that chilling to you? It's like scary or anything. I would think that word would be used if you were saying, oh, I don't remember what happened last night. That was very chilling to me. That's what I would think you would use it in. But you looking into his eyes, not very chilling. You sounded like you had like a little tiny crush, more than anything. I stretched as I stared at the ceiling, pondering the events of last night. I didn't know Malfoy got nightmares, but then I guessed if I'd never really thought about it. He always acted so in control, on top of everything. Who would have guessed? I stood up and made my way to the bathroom. Bathroom to get a shower before going down to breakfast. I wonder if we'd be sitting with our usual houses, or if that would have changed too. Probably not, I reasoned. That's too much hassle just for 1 year to sit separately from the rest. I finished drying my body and caught sight of myself in the mirror. I remembered seeing the same image, around a foot shorter and pale as chalk, 7 years ago. How times had changed. I got dressed quickly, having managed to waste half an hour so far. My mind wandered as I put on my uniform. I have a question. Why do they always have, like, Hermione or Draco have such dark skin in a lot of the pictures? in the books, are they actually really dark-skinned? That's my question. Because if you think of Harry Potter, you think of him being held up in that cupboard, the little cupboard all the time, so he would have pale skin, I thought. Because every time he's pictured in movies and stuff like that, I always pictured him being really, really pale. Not Draco Malfoy pale, but pale. Anyways, let's keep on going. It felt great to be back, just as I always did. But some things had been stolen from me in a way I wasn't sure I'd ever be able to explain. The horrors I'd seen defending the school and its students still plagued me. I doubted I'd ever be able to look at the castle the same way ever again. That terrified me more than anything. This place, Hogwarts, was my escape. Sure, it was school, which meant there were exams and annoying sods like Malfoy and strict teachers and homework, but this place was my home. That's kind of sad that you think about it. His home was practically almost destroyed because of the war he didn't even want to fight, but was dragged into because this one person, I'm going to call him a person because I don't know what else he is, monster, put that curse onto him when he was just an innocent bystander. I'm just looking at it from that perspective. I feel really bad for him. And it's just sad. I'd been able to get away from my bloody uncle and aunt for most of the year and been able to grow up without being treated like an inferior creature every second of the day. Hell, if it wasn't for Hogwarts, I'd probably still be in the fucking cupboard under the stairs. See? Sorry, I didn't mean to giggle at that, but I mean, like I just made a point of, and I loved how he's like, I probably still. It's more of me giggling at the wording of it, because it's worded like I would word it, and it was kind of like a dry humor kind of thing. After the thought, I glared down at the floor. Enough. I couldn't dwell on this now, not on my first day of class. So he's in 8th year, correct? Or is he in 7th year? I thought he finished 7th year and he was going into his 8th year, but he didn't get to finish. But a lot of people say it's 7th year and he's retaking 7th year, but I thought it was 8th. Just asking, is it 8th or 7th? It has to be 7th because they graduate at 18. Right, 7th year. Okay. Just did quick math. Okay. If I was ever to truly put the war behind me, first of all, I had to put it as far back into my mind as I could. Something told me that wouldn't be quite as easy as I was hoping. The great hall was crowded as I made my way in, and after a quick scan, found myself a space beside Ron and across from Hermione. Malfoy sat almost directly across from me, staring furiously down at his food as if it had insulted his family. I smirked at that, looking away and back to my friends. Wait, what? Directly across from me? But Hermione... Oh, he sat by Hermione. Oh, shit. By the way, if you are reading my... listening to Hermione, it got weird really fast. Theodore Nott is into some weird stuff, and someone I did not think he would be into. Okay, anyways. Malfoy sat... whatever. Ron looked bedraggled. I never heard of that word. And half asleep. I suppose I looked pretty much the same as him. Hermione, though, was practically bursting with excitement. She had a stack of 3 books piled beside her for our first class, and a fourth propped upon her lap, reading as she ate. Potions, of course. What better way to start the school year? Hooray for me. I stabbed the bacon on my plate with my fork, chewing thoughtfully. There'd be a new teacher this year. It wasn't like Snape could take the class anymore. I wasn't really sure how I felt about Snape. Sure, he'd redeemed himself at the end, but did that make up for 7 years of insults and being an ass towards his students? No, it didn't. He still hated the slimy git, regardless of his help at the end. I'm going to say this, that if Snape didn't push Harry, would he still be the same person that broke the rules and actually challenged the system? Not system, but you know what I mean. Would have broke the rules, stopped things. He might have, but not had the confidence or tried as much. I don't think. I think Snape kind of pushed him to the point of like, I want to prove you wrong. I want to do this, because he kept on saying, it seems that fame isn't everything, when he said that he wasn't doing good in class. So, there you go. I think that's what it is, to be honest. Just because he'd been obsessed with my mom didn't mean he couldn't take her rejecting him before. I'd even been born out. I had even been born. I'm not going to out on me. To take it out on me. By the way, like, he was trying to protect Harry the whole entire time, if you look at it. I shook my head. I wouldn't think of that now. Not when there was a new teacher. Maybe this year would be better. Surely a teacher couldn't be worse. Was that even possible? That reminded me. Ron, any idea who's the new potions teacher? Who's the new potions teacher? I asked him. No, not a bloody clue. I'll ask the genius. He relayed the question to Hermione after swallowing the food in his mouth. Yeah, I'm just cringing because I'm imagining him with his big mouth of food and he's talking with it. I'm like, oh! It kind of gives me shivers in a way and irks my neck a little bit. I'm not saying that I don't like that. It's just sounds. Sounds with me is kind of important and can get me irked very easily. He leaned right in close to her to ask her because she was speaking that quietly. Hermione did that same sometime. Hermione did that sometimes when she was reading. She just became so absorbed into her book that she seemed to be in a different world altogether. I smiled to myself at that. One thing that would never change, Hermione and her books. Ron leaned back a few moments later. She says her name's Professor Tromes. Professor Trome. He frowned. Odd name, that. He furrowed his brow for a minute in contemplation of this new information, and then started shoveling food into his mouth again. I hope what happens in this book happened in the other book where he was teasing him under the table so many times, and he's like, I saw his death, like a really bad death in the future. Yeah, sounds weird, I agreed, twisting my fork around through my own food. Do you think she'll be like Snape? Ron asked. Hopefully not. He was a bloody nightmare. Just the thought of Snape made me dread potions again, even though he was dead, and the feeling still lingered. Wonder if she knows what he was like. I mean, do you think she was told? Probably not. They wouldn't want want another one like him. I laughed. He joined in. It's kind of rude, guys. We made small talk for the rest of the breakfast, then make their way to their first class. The teacher hadn't arrived yet. As I sat down in Potions, picking a desk closer to the back of the room, Ron and Hermione sat together in front of me. Hermione was frantically ensuring that Ron and I had the right books and was filling us in on what we should already know. Surprisingly enough, we had potions with the Slytherins again. Just my luck, I suppose. I glanced sidelong at Malfoy. He was at the front of the classroom, beside Blaise and Pansy, and she was at the desk to his left. His hair was gelled back as per usual, his robes devoid of creases and sitting effortlessly on his slim frame. Wait, what the fuck? Had I noticed all that? I flicked my eyes away from Malfoy. I really had to stop looking at him. There was no reason to anymore. So why did I keep doing it? I need a distraction now. Hermione, any ideas where the teacher is? I asked her, rubbing my temples in an attempt to calm myself. She turned around in her seat, rolling her eyes, as if I'd ask her the difference between casting Accio and Alohomora. Damn, that's true. Harry, I may be clever, but I can't read minds or tell the future. How should I know? If I had to guess, I'd say she's just running late. I yawned. She turned back around and buried herself in her book once again. Ron spun in his seat. How you feeling, mate? He asked, catching me by surprise. Fine. Yeah, why'd you ask? You've just been a bit under the weather recently. You sure you're fine? He questioned. It was nice to know that someone had noticed, but I doubted Ron would understand if I told him my thoughts. More than that, I didn't want him worrying about me. Yeah, of course, mate. I'm great. I forced a small smile, trying to make it look as genuine as possible. He seemed to buy it and was about to say something when the doors creaked open. The teacher had arrived. My eyes widened as the door creaked shut, and she swept into the room, her heels clicking softly on the stone floor. Her eyes were black pits in her head. One of them sliced through with a massive scar. She had short black hair that came down to her chin and looked clean. The exact opposite of Snape's grease pan excuse for hair. Opposite of Snape's... Why? Oh, whatever. Her robes were neat and creaseless. Arms folded easily across her chest. I hadn't seen her at the feast yesterday. Maybe she'd been late to that too. Then again, I really looked at the table very intently, I hadn't looked at the table very intently. So maybe she had been there after all. She surveyed the class silently. No one uttered a word. I found the silence kind of chilling. There you go. That's how you use it. Actually, almost forced. What must have been a few minutes later, she spoke. Hello, students. I am Professor Trome. I am taking over from your previous potions teacher, and first of all, I would like to tell you how I operate. No student will be sitting alone. You will all need a partner for the majority of the what we are going to be doing within this room. She eyed me and Pansy, the only two sitting alone. Boy at the back, that means that you will come down here to sit with this girl. She paused again, waiting for me to move. My lucky day, sitting next to Pansy. So much for a good start. I gathered my stuff and walked down to the front, seating myself to the left of her. I felt Malfoy's eyes on me and could see the smirk on Pansy's face. Strangely, neither said anything, not even a muttered, sarcastic quip. Then Trome started up again. This year will be a particularly testing for you all. You will be dealing with complex potions that require a careful hand and a lot of work. Our first potion will be a watered-down version of Veritaserum that does not require to be left for 28 days. You will find the ingredients on your desk, work with your partner, and decide who will take the serum. Begin. She turned in a flurry, flicking her wand, swishing and flicking, flicking her wand as she did so. The gray covers that had partly coated each desk suddenly flew off and zipped away, revealing a scroll with ingredients written within it in elegant slanted writing, and a pile of ingredients. Pansy shot me a look. Oh, goody. I get to work with Potter. You'll be taking the potion, Scarface, and you'll help me make it. Try not to blow the cauldron, though, would you? She stared icily at me, then took the scroll from my hands and began. If I wanted to be on peaceful grounds with Malfoy, I guess I'd have to put up with Pansy, too. I put back my retort and added water to the cauldron. It seemed to take years to start simmering. I just hoped the rest of the class would pass quickly. A while later, Pansy scooped the potion out into a beaker using a ladle. It was completely clear, easily mistaken for water, and smelled peaceful if anything. Trome looked over the classroom with her beady black eyes. She sat behind her desk like a panther waiting for the right opportunity to pounce. Noticing that we had all finished, she cleared her throat. Now, one of you from each pair take the potion. Those who don't take it will ask the others a single question to ensure success. Remember, this is a watered-down version, meaning you will only have enough time to ask one or two questions under this effect. Begin. She went back to observing us. I picked up the beaker off the table and downed the whole thing in one. It tasted of nothing, like water. There was a slight pinch of something sweet, but I couldn't place it. I swallowed the potion, not feeling different at all. Immediately, Pansy asked me a question. What's your deal with Draco? Of course. I should have expected that. I spoke without wanting to. almost as if I wasn't in control of my own words. I'm fed up with being enemies. I want to be his friend. I don't think he's as bad as a person as he tries to make everyone believe. I gasped for breath at the end of it, feeling as if I couldn't breathe at all. Pansy's eyebrows had shot up, and her eyes gleamed maliciously. "Do you find Draco hot?" she asked. I could see Draco blushing deeply from the corner of my eye as I struggled with how to answer. Honestly, I didn't even know if I did. I wasn't gay, right? I liked Cho and Ginny. I couldn't be gay. But Malfoy, he's enchanting, enticing in a way that was completely unlike how I'd felt for Ginny, and yet just as strong. Was that what it was to like a guy? No, surely not. It wasn't the same emotion in the slightest. It seemed as if the potion didn't know how to answer either. I didn't speak straight away. He's all right, really. I wouldn't say hot. I'm not gay, I blurted. Luckily, the room was too filled with other people's chatter to hear my answer. Wait, was it just me, or did Malfoy look crestfallen? His eyes looked hurt, sad. What the hell? What was wrong with him? I flicked my eyes away from him again, took a breath. I wonder what Blaise must have said to get him to react like that. But if it was Blaise who had said it, why was he looking at me? Dude, you're the one who said it, moron. Hi, how are you liking this now? I have over 150 reads. I'd just like to say thank you to you all. I have an idea for where I want this to head, and if all goes to plan, it'll be great. Please leave votes, comments, and let me know what you think. Okay. Chapter 8, Draco's POV. I'm not gay. The words echoed through my mind, even now, days later. Yes, Potter wasn't gay. I knew that, of course, but hearing him say the words just made me realize how utterly hopeless my crush really was. He doesn't even think I'm hot. I don't really know what I expected, and I doubt the oblivious Git knows that I heard, or how much it hurt me. I blame Pansy, obviously. Honestly. She's been trying to set me up with a guy since I first told her I was gay. I've also told her that I realized I was gay because of Potter, but she swore to secrecy. I trust Pansy enough to not go babble my business to the world. Could she even possibly could she have possibly been more obvious, though? Then again, Potter is oblivious as fuck. I doubt he knew I fancied him if I offered him a bouquet of flowers and proclaimed my love. I felt like a first year with their first crush, falling head over heels for someone and then having rejection thrown into their face. Great and brilliant start to the year for me. I somehow magically managed to go 3 days avoiding Potter. It's a miracle, really, especially since we now share a dorm. I have been leaving just before he gets up, returning early before he gets back so that I can feign sleep and prevent him from talking to me. Bloody Potter, always the cause of my problems. Couldn't there be just one thing that he wasn't the center of? Did he just have to be the bane of my existence at every moment? Did he really have to be integrated into every problem that came my way? Apparently, yes, he did. It's breaking my heart, actually. I'm ignoring him completely, pretending I don't hear him asking me almost constantly if I'm okay. No, Potter, I'm not okay. Go back to your perfect little friends and leave me to myself, please. He's breaking my resolve. I won't be able to stay strong when he's right there. He doesn't understand that doing what he's doing to me. He's caring about me and is driving about me. His care for me is driving me crazy. Don't even get me started on the way he runs his hand through his hair when he's nervous. Merlin, he's just so gorgeous. I can't even begin to describe the hurricane of feelings that he creates within me. All it takes is one look, one genuine fucking smile, and I'm lost in his eyes, taken by him. I wish I could be the one to make him smile, make him laugh. Merlin, his laugh, it's the best sound in the world. I despise myself for what I'm doing, how I'm acting towards him. I hate my family and this horrendous thing on my arm. I deserve it, of course, no doubt about it. After all I've done, I deserve death. A long, slow, torturous death. There is nothing I hate more than me, though. I hate myself the most. I've started just staring at the mark on my arm, tracing it with my nails, making the skin go red. As I run my nails over it again and again, I think I can't stand to look at it, but I'm also compelled to. I push my robe sleeve back down and turn my eyes back towards Hagrid, as he always gave the benefits and detriments of unicorn blood on the body. Blaze and Pansy didn't pick this class. They chose History of Magic instead. Why anyone would willingly pick the class, I couldn't imagine. They left me alone. Sods. I can feel rage rising within me as I half listen to the hulking oaf. I couldn't care less about the care of magical creatures, but it's better this than History of Magic with Professor Binns. I sagged backwards against Hagrid's hut, letting the fire spread through me, then demolish as if it had never existed. I suppose it isn't healthy to push your feelings away, but I've been doing it for so long now that I doubt I'll survive if I let it all break loose. My eyes were drawn to Potter suddenly, and I feel the anger flare up again as I look at him. He has friends, a family he can speak to, albeit not his real family, but they might as well be. Perfect little Potter, with his following of fans. Oh, whoopsie. He doesn't have to keep up in act. Okay, hold on. Following of his fans that adore him with handle his feelings, listen to him. He doesn't have to keep up an act. He's just Harry. He doesn't need to do anything outside of his comfort zone. How I wish I was just Draco, who doesn't have to live up to his father's standards. Just Draco, who doesn't have a name looming like a shark over his shoulder at all times. Keep him in check, preventing him from acting a certain way. I closed my eyes suddenly, overwhelmed by my own self-pity. I want to scream, cry out, throw my feelings out for them all to see. I need to break out of my Malfoy cage, be myself for the first time, ever. How great would that be? Didn't realize he was back, filthy Death Eater. I hear a Ravenclaw say to the boy next to him. I don't recognize them. Then again, I don't know many Ravenclaws. Their frequent glances backward tell me that I'm their topic of the conversation. I'm not a Death Eater. Not anymore. How could McGonagall even think about letting scum like him back in? The one on the left whispers back. Merlin knows he'll probably kill us all in our sleep. That we all share a common room. Now that we all share a common room. The first one snorted. Kill you. Why in Merlin's beard would I do that? This is all in his head that he's saying that. He's not saying anything back, technically. I felt the dread and panic rise within me. I should never have come back here. This was all a mistake. We'd only been back a few days, and already people are talking and spreading rumors. They had even asked how I felt. No one had. They hadn't even asked me how I felt. No one had. No one cared how I felt. No one cared how I was coping. All they cared about was my history. I was Draco Malfoy, the Death Eater, the follower of Voldemort. And I'd never be anything more. I fought to keep the mask on my face. Tried my hardest to keep the tears inside. I would not cry here. I wouldn't break down. I couldn't break down in front of them. Instead, I summoned all my strength and shot them a darkest glare I could possibly muster. They continued their conversation, but quieter, so that I couldn't make out the words. I saw their shoulders shaking with laughter, which only renewed my growing dread. I folded my arms and pushed my sleeves back, raking my nails over the fucking mark. The pain helped me focus, clearing my head. I didn't care that I was bleeding now. All I cared about was the relief that the pain offered. I felt Harry Potter's eyes on me and turned to look at him almost unconsciously. As soon as I locked eyes with him, I was lost in the apple green pools. Oh, that's why he ate green apples. I never thought of that. Why he eats green apples all the time. Guess whose eyes are green? Wow. But not the same type of green, but I mean, still. I paused in what I was doing and became absorbed in those spectacular emerald eyes. I took in the fullness of his lips, the mess of the short hair, his askew glasses, all without taking his eyes from him. Merlin, I wanted him so badly, sometimes it hurt. He would never want me. I knew that. But I could only dream, could only wish that something as marvelous as that would happen. The boy who lived in a Death Eater, unthinkable. Are we gonna break out in Fiddler on the Roof? Unheard of, unthinkable. I forgot what song that was. It would never happen. Could never happen as long as this thing resided on my arm. As long as I was a Malfoy. My eyes were filled with confusion, sympathy even. Some far off part of my mind wondered why. Then his gaze flickered to my arm. It was as if the spell was broken, as I suddenly knew. My arm. Of course, I looked down and noted the rivets of blood streaming down it. Patterns of grass below with dark red spots. Blood. It used to terrify me. It is kind of funny how things change. Pain was searing, of course, but I didn't care. I had felt much worse over the last year. It might as well have been a paper cut for all it mattered to me. When I looked back up, there was a question in his eyes now. Does he care? Just the thought sent my mind into overdrive. Then I was brought sharply to reality. I shot him a glare. He didn't care for me. I couldn't let him fall into that trap. He would possibly care for cowardly, repulsive Draco Malfoy. He merely gave the brave and noble hero. He is merely being the brave and noble hero, making himself look good by being nice to his enemies. Insufferable Potter. I didn't know how I could have ever expected more. He looked hurt by my glare, and shiftily averted his eyes, smartly deciding not to press further. One thing was for certain, though. There would be no avoiding him now. Potter was many things, but he was not inconsiderate. Now that he was trying to become friends with me, I doubted that he'd keep from questioning me on my well-being. Fucking Potter. Can't he keep to himself? He's complicating my life enough as it is. I step out of the greenhouse after my last class of the day, herbology. Fucking finally, the old hag drones on forever. I walk confidently, shooting glares at anyone who glanced sideways at me. I caught snatches of conversation that made my heart plummet. Further, if that was at all possible. Death Eater, pathetic Malfoy, coward, dangerous. He'll just attack us. I felt my breathing begin to speed up, my palms sweating against my sides. I felt trapped, surrounded by a raging torrent of their insults. Suddenly, I had to escape. Anything to get out of there. I had to get back to the dorms. No, Malfoys don't run. I couldn't run. I'd have to deal with it all. Running was a sign of weakness. If I showed weakness, then the tattered shreds of respect that hung around me would be lost forever. Keep your cool, Draco. You got this. Draco, wake up! A voice yelled from behind me. I turned, glad of any distraction, and saw Blaze speed walking towards me. He must have seen the look on my face, although I'd attempted to hide it. What's wrong? His voice was touched with concern, his eyebrows furrowing as he looked at me. Nothing. I'm fine. Drop it. I snapped back, schooling my features into a stone into stone once more. I kind of wanted to confide in Blaze about how I was feeling, but that wasn't a very Malfoy thing to do. And, like it or not, I was still a Malfoy, and I had expectations to follow and uphold. Dude, you just said that you wanted to be known for just Draco. Why don't you just break it? Just break it. You know, because you said that you just want to be known as Draco. Stop acting like a Malfoy then. The dark-skinned boy rolled his eyes. He knew better than to argue with me. Whatever. Doing anything later? Unless, of course, you plan to spend the night with Potter. He wiggled his eyebrows suggestively. For a second, just a second, I was stunned. How the fuck did he find out? When I realized he was teasing me and fought to keep the blush from my face. Shove off, Blaze. I'd rather have detention with McGonagall than be with that bugger. I hoped to Merlin that I sounded convincing. Blaze wasn't stupid, but he wouldn't expect me to be chasing Potter, would he? Right. Well, we're having a game night. Ooh, please. Yes! Yes, I looked down. Oh my gosh, it's my favorite game of all time. I need to play a good game of Truth or Dare with my friends. Truth or Dare, kiss and swear. That's what I should do with my friends. Truth or Dare, kiss or swear. It doesn't have to, be magical. You can still do it. We're having a game night in the common room on Friday. Thought you'd like to know. Friday? It's only Wednesday. And a game night? I looked at him incredulously. I wasn't familiar with the term. Yeah, chess, contortions, twister, truth or dare. It's a Hufflepuff thing. Their idea. He listed each activity off on his fingers and pausing after each one. Are you coming then? I thought for a moment, deciding. It sounded like a good idea and would probably be as fun as the first night back. Sure, why not? What could possibly go wrong in the common room? Oh, bitch, a lot of things. Great. I'm gonna go meet some mates for a game of Quidditch. Coming? I thought about heading to the dorms, but I'd probably just run into Harry again. I nodded and followed Blaze towards the pitch. I don't know how long I'd spent playing Quidditch, but I was absolutely exhausted when I got back. It was later than usual, and there were only a few scattered people in the common room, reading and chattering tiredly to one another. I made my way to my dorm, not even pausing to realize that Harry would be inside. I can only blame myself. As soon as I walk in, I locked eyes with the sod. He was shirtless, obviously about to go to bed, but when he heard the door open, he must have turned around. I tried my hardest not to trail my eyes over his abs and his toned skin. I forced myself to look into his face, then flicker my eyes away as if I'd never seen him in the first place. Malfoy, I want to talk to you, he said as I made my way towards my bed. I tensed when I felt a hand on my shoulder and turned with a glare. Potter, please leave me alone. That's what he's thinking. The fuck do you want, Scarface? I spat, my heart dropping to see his eyes narrow in anger. His face cleared almost as soon as the anger had crossed it. He flickered his eyes to my arm and then back to my face. This close, I realized that I was a few inches taller than him. With one step, I could kiss his forehead. With one hand, I could run my fingers through his hair, wrap my arms around his neck, and just relish in the feel of him. But no, I can't. Earlier, Malfoy, your arm. He spoke so softly, so gently. He was trying so hard to be nice, to show that he truly did care. I could so easily fall under his spell, hell, like I haven't already. What drivel are you on about? What about my arm, Potter? My eyes flashed with warning, but he wasn't put off. In one swift movement, he took my arm and rolled back my sleeve, revealing the mark for all to see. The red lines are still visible around it. Thank Merlin it had been I put a glamour on it earlier. The rest of the damage was hidden. That hideous black brand grinned at me. The black-haired guy grinned at me, enjoying my discomfort and looking on as Potter stared. Oh, the black brand grinned at me. Potter stared open-mouthed at the scratches outlining. Malfoy. Yes, Potter, I know. The dark mark, I bet. This makes me harder to like. I get it. It's repulsive. It's hideous. I hate it too. Actually, if I'm gonna ever get like a tattoo, I probably get the dark mark. To be honest, it's like a sick tattoo. But then again, I'm scared of needles. I mean, otherwise, yeah. Drunk out of my mind? Yes. Don't you see why I deserve these punishments now? Do you? I'm a coward. I didn't deserve to survive the war. I do not deserve your kindness. I'm despicable. I'm selfish. I really should have been killed. Curse you for saving me from the fire, Potter. Curse you. Why couldn't you have just let me die? I couldn't say any of that. Not to Potter, not to anyone. I was too startled to move for a second. Then I snatched my arm away. Stay the fuck away from me, Potter, I screamed, racing into the bathroom and slamming the door behind me. Chapter 9. Harry's POV. Malfoy's been avoiding me. There's no doubt about it. Why do I feel so put out about it? Honestly, I have no idea. My sudden interest in him is disturbing to say the least. I never realized how much I watched him over the years, until I began to notice subtle changes about him that I shouldn't have noticed at all. To start with, he had lost a lot of weight over the summer. So much that his ribs could be seen beneath his robes, each one prominent. His eyes were sunken, though they still held their superior gleam that had resided there for as long as I'd known him. His skin was paler than ever, making his hair look gray in contrast. He was still the same as all usual in the classes he shared with me. Malfoy was well known for being second only to Hermione in exams. He never missed homework as far as I knew. That was reassuring to me. I'm not sure why. I guess it was just nice to know that not everything had changed. It gave me some hope that his home life wasn't as bad as I was starting to think. Uh-oh, you were so wrong, my dude. The most startling development of all, though, was his eyes. He constantly looked alert, skittish. He jumped at every noise, flinched at every touch. At night he seemed reluctant to sleep, constantly glancing my way as if I would strangle him as soon as he dared to relax. What the fuck? How do I know so much about the Git who's supposed to be my enemy? When did I notice all of this? It's disturbing to think about. I shake my head and focus on Professor McGonagall as she explains how to tell the difference between a natural object and a transfigured one. Transfiguration isn't the worst subject. McGonagall is really good teacher. I can think of worse ways to spend last period than in her class. Although she was now the head teacher, she somehow managed to keep up with her classes. You mean headmistress. That's what it's called. Or it's like the principal. I thought she would have given up teaching and just focused on her new, more demanding role, but apparently not. There we always do half theory, half actual transfiguration. Supposedly, in an entire class of transfiguration would be too much of a pull on our magic. I look up from my desk in time to hear her explain that what we'll be doing for the remainder of the class. What? Wait a minute. Do they have different classes each time? Because Malfoy's last class was herbology. Am I mistaken? So do they change each day or something? I don't know. Supposedly an entire class. Whatever. Today we will be turning inanimate objects into animals. I will split the room into 3 and give you all a particular animal to focus on. Whichever section gets the most transfigured animals gets to leave first. The professor smiled, eyeing us all as she spoke. Each section will also be given a different base and species to transfigure. She flicked her wand. Sorry, I have to do it. She flicked her wand and goblets appeared on my section desk. I looked around the room. Malfoy, sitting on the opposite side of the room from me, surprise, surprise, had small, smooth pebble. He was worrying at his wearing. How do you say it? He was worrying. I think he means he's scratching at his arm again. Almost unconsciously, I forced my eyes away from him. I couldn't watch him do that. Not when there was nothing I could do. The middle section had lumps of firewood on their desks, each different shapes and sizes. Students, you have now been given your bases and left-hand side of the room. And the left side of the room, she gestured towards my side, will be attempting to transfigure their goblets into birds. The middle will be focusing on rodents, and the right hand will do small reptiles. You have 10 minutes to come up with a transfiguration. Begin. She clapped her hands together as she finished and turned with a flourish to sit behind her desk, watching us all closely. I looked down at my goblet and turning it in my hands. It was embedded with small red jewels and made of silvery metal carved with intricate swirls and symbols. I thought about what it could become. A crow? But no, too dark. A pigeon, maybe? Surely, growing up in England, I'd seen enough of those to be able to create a proper image. A seagull, then? I don't think so. They were too large. I sighed in frustration and looked about myself to see what the others were attempting. Beside me, Ron had held his head on his hands, as if he could force ideas into his brain by sheer willpower. No, it's silver. I was gonna say swan. That's a duck. Oh, that's a bird. Can't be a peacock. Sorry, I'm trying to think of different birds he could do. Hermione was just picking up her wand, no doubt, with the perfect image of what she wanted in her mind. Dean and Seamus were chatting quietly to one another, hands clasped beneath the shared desk. Seamus kept gesturing to the goblet. Dean just shaking his head. I couldn't quite hear what they were saying, but the two suddenly nodded and retrieved their wands. Over at the other tables, wands were moving. The incantations were being spoken. Malfoy had steepled his slender fingers on his nose, slouched into his desk. He looked half asleep, actually, but then his eyes snapped open, gleaming with excitement. Those mercury depths found my own eyes suddenly thinking akin to a challenge held within them. I flickered my eyes away, suddenly mind wearing. Then suddenly an idea came to mind. I knew exactly what I had to do. I don't know why I hadn't thought of it before, but it was perfect. I ran through the spell in my head and practiced the words over and over until I was certain I knew exactly what to say. Professor McGonagall stood up from her desk, adjusting her glasses up on her nose, and looking icily at us all. After a pause, she spoke again. "Your time is up. Speak the incantation now." The words of the spell reverberated through the room in an extra reminder of what the words were, if I'd forgotten. I spoke them clearly and flicked my wand at the goblet. There was a flash accompanied by many likewise flashes from around me. I blinked to clear my eyes, hoping that I'd done the spell right. Thankfully, I was in luck. I stared at the red phoenix. Phoenixes are silver. It had red jewels. Also, phoenix are big birds too. I hope that goblet is bigger than a regular goblet. Poised on it, the red phoenix stood, poised on my desk. His feathers were the color of rubies that had adorned the goblet moments ago. The eyes were pure onyx, contrasted by its sweeping yellow wings, the knife-sharp beak. It surveyed the room coolly, talons scraping the desk as it moved. The spell that we had cast only keep the transfiguration creatures transfigured for a short amount of time. Professor McGonagall smiled at us all, nodding as she glanced over each of our desks. Some people still had the wood and pebbles on their desks, but most of them seemed to have managed at least something. I looked over at Draco Malfoy again, only to find him staring right back at me. On his desk there was a curled-up viper. His scales were the brightest green that I had ever seen and glistened as it shifted around. His eyes bored into mine, but when I made eye contact, his gaze shifted quicker than a flash of lightning. What the fuck is up with Malfoy now? Squawks and hisses screeches rang around the room as the animals came to fully. There were cries of alarm as some of them leapt from desks. Birds flitting around the room flying around the room in a wave of color. My phoenix turned its obsidian glare towards me, unblinking. Then, in a flash of red, it lifted and joined the growing flock in the sky. Well done, students. Many of you have managed to produce at least something. The professor shot a glance at Ron. I turned towards him. His goblet had sprouted 2 gray wings and a tail. But it was still immobile. His ears had turned crimson. True to my word, the section with the most successful transfiguration shall leave first. That will be the left section, then the right section, and then the middle section. For homework, I would like two 3-feet essays discussing the positives and negatives of the 2. This is bullshit. No way in hell she would assign this. It should be due Friday. It's due in 2 days. I could probably do it the next day. Oh, hell no. You dumbass bitch. I ain't doing that. That will be the left section. Then the right section, and then the middle section. Yeah, already know. Animated transfiguration due for Tuesday. Okay, that's even better. That will be all. Okay, that will be all for today. I slumped backward in my seat, releasing a breath as I thought about what I'd like to do for the rest of the day. I picked up my broom and headed out onto the Quidditch pitch. It'd been so long since I'd flown up there that I couldn't wait to get back in the air. I changed into my more casual clothes for this, deciding that if I fall, I'd rather not get my robes into too much of a state. I kicked up off of the ground and into the sky, my hair flying in the wind behind me. Ron was already in the air, holding a quiffle and a bat in one hand. Holding a quiffle and the bat in one hand. I held the snitch in my left. It was completely spherical. Beyblade. No, it's not Beyblade. What was that one that had the balls that you throw, you toss it on the ground and it turns into some monster or something like that. I don't remember. Was that? No, it wasn't type of Pokemon. It was something else like Beyblade, and I can't think of it. I held the snitch in my. Yeah. I wanted for the rest of the team to mount up and join us. After Transfiguration, Ron and I had invited the common room for a game of Quidditch. There was enough for us for 2 teams and some extras. Luckily, most people had homework to catch up on and were sitting in the stands. Malfoy was among them, joined by Pansy. They were in deep conversation. Malfoy looked desperate about something, throwing his hands up to exaggerate something he was saying. I turned away from them. This wasn't a time to watch Malfoy. Whoa, that wasn't something I have ever expected to think. When was it ever time to watch Malfoy? I hovered in midair, watching the final players mount their brooms and rise up into the sky. Surprisingly, Hermione and Neville had agreed to play. Usually, Hermione would have been studying just now, but she had been particularly eager to join us. Even the girl, Juniper, I think it was on the other team. She hadn't struck me as the sporty type, but her position was almost perfect as she flew around the pitch. I turned back to Ron in time to see him nod my way. A silent gesture, asking if I was ready to start. I nod back and he began to explain the rules to the others, many of which had never played before. I zoned out some time after he explained what each of the balls were for and the different positions they would have to uptake. He was going as the goalkeeper and I would be the seeker. We'd already decided that, so I didn't even need to speak. Since we weren't in robes, the two teams were cannons and bows. I was in cannons. The cannons had a stripe on their brooms, and the bows had a green one. We had red and they had green. Okay. It made it a lot easier to tell the players apart, but it wasn't as effective as the team colors we were all used to. It felt great to not be the center of attention for once, especially after the war. Merlin, the amount of times I'd been asked what it was like to face off against Voldemort. Too many to count. Why did people not seem to understand that I didn't want to talk about the war? Sure, they were sorry, they wished things had been different, but things were not different. People died. I might have saved a lot of people, but I didn't save all of them. Dumbledore, Fred, Tonks, countless others died because of me. The guilt is hard enough to live with. I don't need to be reminded of the war, but by people that weren't even involved, that didn't live through the horrors of it for me. Horrors of it with me. Ron and Hermione, Neville, Luna, none of them have ever asked me what it was like, because they know how fucking shitty it was, or it is to be asked. They know that each memory is a living nightmare for me, because that it's the same for them too. So many lives lost, all to protect me. Someday I will wake up unable to breathe, surrounded by the ghostly images of what happened. The blood and the death is still crystal clear in my mind. I don't scream. I don't cry. I just feel empty, detached from everything. It all feels unreal, like I'm still in the battlefield. And then I'll be hit with all of my feelings. A wave choking me, stealing every breath from my lungs and raking sobs. I don't cry in front of others. It's just not something I've been comfortable with. I need to stay strong. Otherwise, people will worry about me, question my well-being. I just have suffered the consequences of caring about me. I'm not ready for a repeat. Harry, bloody hell, mate, you good? I slammed back into the present at the sound of Ron's voice. He sounded worried, but why? You just went all pale. You all right? He asked. I realized suddenly that the game has started. People staring at me curiously. I shake my head to clear my thoughts. Yeah, mate, I'm fine. Let's go, I said. I made a show of sounding upbeat, smiling as I spoke. I shot further up into the sky, surveying the pitch far below me. Cheers rang out from the stands as a player scored a goal. Their broom had a green stripe, bows. I didn't really pay attention to that, though. I was too focused on finding the snitch. It had to be here somewhere. My eyes searched for the telltale gleam of gold. Across the pitch, about the same height as me, sat Juniper, the rival seeker for bows. I saw her suddenly latch onto something and shoot forwards and down, chasing a glimmer of gold through the air. Moments later, I was on her tail. The wind roaring in my ears pressed close against my broom as I fought to gain speed and overtake her. I smirked and I continued to trail, racing after a flitting shape that was now in my line of sight. Fuck, I heard her say through clenched teeth. A second later, there was a swish of fabric as she swung back into the chase. By now, though, I was inches away from the snitch, just reaching my arm out to grab it. Closer, so close, I could almost reach it. Got it! My hand closed around the small ball. Its wings flickered warily, sliding back inside as it realized it had lost. I raised my prize high in the air, grinning madly as I took a lap of the patch. Whooping cheers sounded from the stands as they noticed my possession. Both teams stopped at the commotion and turned, the bows recognizing their defeat, the cannons yelling in victory. I landed on the pitch at a run, dismounting and grabbing my broom. My blood sang with adrenaline, each breath ragged and fast. I felt better than I had in ages. One Quidditch match, and all my worries had been thrown in the wind and abandoned somehow behind me. The rush of flying never ceased to amaze me. It was just the best feeling in the world. I high-fived Ron when we landed, laughing wildly. Juniper looked a bit put out, but smiled and sent me a nod when I looked at her. For the first time in what seemed like forever, I was actually happy. No! Please, no! Ugh. I woke in the middle of the night to the sound of torturous screams coming from Draco's bed on the other side of the room. At first I wondered what was happening. Then I realized he was still asleep. Please don't. No. His cries rang throughout the dorm. I cast some quick silencing charms on the room to prevent the others from waking up too. He was thrashing about in his bed, screaming and muttering, his voice muffled by what sounded like sobs. I quickened my pace, breaking into a run as I reached him and shook him awake. I felt suddenly awake, like I did when I been hunting for Horcruxes. All feelings of fatigue rolled off of me in a heartbeat. I was worried about him. I knew how realistic dreams could be. Malfoy, wake up. He stopped his thrashing, eyes flickering open, to expose the startling silver of his irises. He took a shuddering breath, then dissolved into tears, pushing himself against me as if looking for comfort. I sat on the edge. Sat on the edge of the bed to make sure he was okay. On instinct, I hugged him. It's what I would have done to anyone if they'd had a nightmare. It just seemed right. I didn't even hesitate. He cried against me, curling up as he sobbed. I rubbed circles on his back, concerned beyond what I would have thought possible. He muttered something unintelligible into my chest. Again and again, it sounded like, "Thank Merlin you're alive." That can't be right. Why would Malfoy be happy I was alive? I thought better than to say something. He was obviously still half asleep. As his hands wrapped around me, I tensed up, then remembered that he wasn't even actually awake and relaxed. It must have just be instinct for him, right? After an age, he stopped crying and recited into silence. His breathing became even and slow. I knew he was probably sleeping. I stood up to leave, detangling myself from his arms, when a hand grabbed my wrist. I froze instantly, unsure what to expect. When I turned, however, I heard him whisper, "Please, just stay, don't go." His voice was so broken, so wrenched with sadness. I sat back down and lay next to him. I didn't think I'd be able to sleep again. I've always despised sleep with others. Even when I stayed over at the Burrow for the first time and had to share a bed with Ron, I had just stayed awake, unable to sleep. Something about having another person so close was just unnerving to me. I don't think I've ever felt so awkward in my life. Malfoy was just there, next to me, holding onto my wrist, as if I'd ceased to exist, as if he let go. Just as I was about to try and leave again, he began tracing shapes down my arm. Small, gentle movements that relaxed me instantly. It was the most peculiar feeling. It was just as soft, so caring. Again, I froze, confused, but also kind of curious about what he was doing. The shapes were soothing, moving up and down my arm and then down to my hand. I wanted to move. I wanted to just lie there and just let him do whatever this was. And then before I knew it, I was asleep. The best sleep I've had in years. Ooh. Hunty. Ooh, hunty. Hunty. Bitch, work, please. Don't make me break this thing. Thank you. Chapter 10. Draco's POV. I had what was quite possibly the best sleep I can recall ever experiencing. Granted, I still had a nightmare. I doubt I'll ever be free of those. But after I woke up, crying and shuddering at some point in the early hours, the nightmare had ceased. I didn't know what happened. I couldn't remember anything apart from waking up in a dazed mess and then falling asleep peacefully. Really, just the fact that I had fallen asleep again should have made me wonder how I'd manage it. Usually, I'd just wake up and read for a few hours in an attempt to calm my racing mind. When I awoke for a second time, I almost slept out of my skin. The boy who lived was in my bed. I was wrapped around him with my hand on his chest. Fuck. Oh, fucking hell. I was clutching his arm tightly. For some reason or another, his skin was so soft, smooth, warm, in contrast to my consistent chill. For a few minutes, I thought I was still asleep. It couldn't possibly be real, could it? Could it? No, it was just a dream. It didn't matter that it was the most realistic dream I ever experienced. It had to be a dream. I felt panic rise in my chest as I realized that this simply could not be a dream. I dreamed of something like this so many times, each time waking up to be slapped by the harsh reality of the world. Where was the slap? No rude awakening. I was motionless, unable to move from shock. I was unable to remove myself from on top of him. But did I really want to? No, I did not. Merlin, I don't want to move. I wanted to stay there in his comforting embrace. He was holding me. I noticed suddenly. His hands were lying loose on my waist. Uh-oh. I don't think I've ever felt so protected in someone's grip. Never wanted someone's grip so much in my life. Ever since the Dark Lord attempted to hug me, I've never really appreciated affection or human contact. I suppose it was all just ruined for me, just like he'd ruined the rest of my life. I smiled to myself, allowing myself to feel this enveloping happiness for the last time in years. I wasn't going to waste the moment of thinking about my past. I snuggled against him, knowing fine well I would not be going back to sleep. How did it happen, though? Why was Potter in my bed? I wasn't complaining. No way. I wanted this for years, but it felt strange to wake up and find him there, peaceful, asleep. He looked so effing adorable whilst he slept like a puppy. I felt an intense desire to run my hands through his hair, but there was no way I was doing that. For all I knew, it would break whatever spell I was trapped in. I decided to just enjoy it while it lasted. Lay there for an unknown time. It was only about 5 o'clock, and I had a while before it was time to begin getting dressed. Why not spend it here? I couldn't calm my frantic thoughts. No matter how much I wanted to just enjoy the moment. Why the fuck was Potter in my bed? Why was he on top of the duvet? Why did he have his glasses on? What in Merlin tits was happening? My mind raced as I frantically tried to come up with a logical explanation for Potter's sudden appearance. My eventual conclusion: there wasn't one. Had I done something to him? In my sleep? Was that even possible? I reeled at thoughts, mulling it over uncomfortably in my head. No, that was impossible. You couldn't do magic in your sleep. He stirred suddenly, stretched, and inhaled deeply. I think Potter was waking up. I sat up so fast I felt dizzy and shuffled to the other side of the bed from him, already missing his body heat. He's never going to want to speak to me again, not after whatever that was. Twin emerald pools sparkled into existence as he opened his eyes. He stared at the ceiling, frowning. Then his eyes flickered to me. I smirked at him, winking, too. I had to play the cool Malfoy act that everyone was accustomed to seeing. If he only knew, and he's gonna know. If I acted flustered now, if I betrayed my true feelings, I'd break apart completely. Malfoy stayed calm. They don't break under pressure. Potter's eyes widened as he saw me. He too sat up, albeit not nearly as fast as I did. You finally okay now, Malfoy? He asked me hesitantly. I was taken aback. Bloody hell! Potter, you're just as clueless, aren't you? I've never felt better. Have you any idea how long I've wanted to wake up in your arms? I couldn't say that, but obviously, I didn't say that, and obviously I couldn't. By saying that, I was admitting my feelings and really ruining the Malfoy name for good. What do you mean, Potter? I was confused. He wants to know how I feel. How about an explanation first? He looked down at his hands, and they held the words he was looking for. Like they were holding the hand. Yeah. Well, I mean, after last night. Wow. Potter. Wow. Just great at wording things, aren't you? What the fuck happened last night? And what the hell are you talking about? Again, I couldn't say that. I had to be careful about how I handled this. Malfoys think before they speak, after all. I furrowed my brow expertly, bottling my feelings and hiding them from the world. Hiding feelings was easy, especially when you've been doing it for so long, as I had. Lucius would never have tolerated sadness, anger, excitement. A Malfoy is elegant at all times, a master of his feelings. Under this rule, feelings were swallowed and adapted to better fit the family reputation. Sad? No, you're not. Be calm. Angry? Never. Control yourself. Breaking apart inside because the boy who lived, Scarface Potter, the gorgeous specimen himself, is sitting in the edge of your bed. Hide it. He doesn't have to know how you feel. All of this flashed through his mind in a matter of seconds. My mind. I'm playing him, that's right. As I schooled my features into an expression of perplexed curiosity. I was fully awake now, all traces of sleep gone. My brain was no longer sluggish, struggling to keep up. I was sharp, ready. Last night, a faint tremor in my voice was masked by the venom injected into the words. I felt like I'd been stabbed by my own heart. Here I was, with the boy of my dreams, seated on my bed, caring for me as I'd wished he wouldn't for Merlin who knows how long, and I was forced to push it all away, wrapped up my disappointment and self-resentment, and flicked it into the wind in the blink of an eye. Malfoy, you begged me to stay with you. You don't remember? He smirked slightly as he spoke. A smirk looked good on him, accented his features well. My brain imploded as I absorbed his words a few moments later. Begged him to stay? When had I even... Oh, the nightmare. It all came rushing back. to me in a blur, breaking images that stopped and started almost at random, crying, grasping his arm, choking on my own sobs, asking Potter to stay with me, curling up against him when he relented. That stupid nightmare that had started it all. I dreamed about the moment I'd thought he was dead. When my mother had reported to the Dark Lord that Harry Potter was dead. That was the moment that my heart had broken, splintered, torn into minuscule shreds of pain. That was why I'd woken up, screaming, no doubt. It'd been a while since I'd thought about that moment. I don't think I've ever thought as much raw pain as I did then. Who knew love would hurt more than the Crucius curse? My face must have betrayed me this time. I was far too utterly shocked to alter my features. He stayed with me, his enemy, Buddy Potter stayed with me. In that moment, I couldn't care less about my family, loyalties, any of it. The fucker I'd tormented for years had stuck by me in a moment of need. I wanted to kiss him so badly. My eyes involuntarily flickered down to his lips, tracing their soft outline, then running over his downcast meadowed eyes. My parents had abandoned me when I'd screamed myself awake in the night. I was certain they'd heard me. I doubted even the deepest of the sleepers could have slumbered through it. Yet a man I barely knew came to the rescue, twice, without much as a hesitation. I wanted to hate him. It would made everything so much easier for me. It would end about half my problems and allow me to get over the strange, obsessive crush. There was only one problem. How could I hate him after he'd saved me from the night crying to myself in silence? How could I despise someone so pure, despite the crap that I had been thrown at him his entire life? In short, I couldn't hate him. It was impossible. I'd tried many times, but every time I caught his glorious, lopsided smile, the light in the emerald globes of his eyes, or even the look of curious puzzlement he wore so often my attempts were smashed to smithereens. There we go. Smithereens, whatever. I realized that I'd zone out, lost in my own thoughts. My cheeks burned with embarrassment. Panic rose within me, a wave of fire that choked my breath, made my breathing shallow. There was no pretending now. Not even my father's mask would have been able to hide these feelings as they banded together and swamped me. Yeah, that I remember. Why did you stay? As much as I tried to control it, my eyes shone with hope. I wanted him to say something that proved my feelings were not all for naught. Yet at the same time, I wanted him to crush everything I felt for him in a few words. I was tired of feeling so torn between tradition and my own interests. I didn't want to live under the overshadowing presence of my family's name any longer. But there was no way I could possibly escape. No, it followed me like a plague. He didn't even look flustered, just traced his finger along his arm as he answered, "Well, why? Why, Malfoy? Malfoy, I was worried about you, and I know what it's like to wake up with nightmares and have no one there for you. I wouldn't want to put anyone else through that. So, of course, I was there for you. I'd do the same for anyone." He locked eyes with me as he spoke, capturing me completely in the brief second that we held eye contact. "Potter, that's not what I wanted to hear you say. Wanted you to say. Merlin, you're making it all so much harder." He could have made me want to kill him with just a few words, but no, of course. Potter would have a brave and heroic reason. He wanted to comfort me, the noble, loyal bastard. Thanks, Potter. I wanted to dissolve into him right there, but alas, as always, I was held back by heritage, controlled by my family, that had all but abandoned me. When I next looked up, there was an almost shocked look on his face. Then he smiled and stood. "Don't mention it, Malfoy." He paused, took a deep breath. "Will you reconsider the truce I mentioned the other day?" His eyes held so much hope, so much expectation. What reason did I really have to refuse now? He'd helped me overnight in a way that my entire family, friends, the lot that never attempted to. He stuck with me when I'd asked him to, and made it impossible to hate him. So, what? I shouldn't have looked ahead. He'd stuck with me when I asked him to, and made it impossible to hate him. So I had from first to third, as I tried to, since my family had rejected me. Could I really break all remaining bonds with my family for the sake of Potter? I couldn't do that to them. No, I couldn't do that to them. They may have thrown me out, abused me, and Merlin knows I hated the fuckers, but they were still blood. Blood was worth more than family. Malfoys don't sell each other out for the sake of happiness. Malfoys are loyal. Malfoys are strong. I can't, Potter. Merlin, I can't. No, I will not break down. Not now. Don't you dare. Why, Malfoy? For fuck's sake. What's your problem? Is this all because of that shitty handshake in first year? I've been nothing but nice to you. What's wrong with you? There was fire in his eyes now, turning those emerald pools into a dark green. What's wrong with me? Potter, what's right with me? Where do I start? I'm gay. I'm a mess. My family wouldn't care if I just killed myself right now. I'm a disgrace to everyone everyone I've ever wanted to please. I'm forced between two sides, myself and my family. I'm fighting an internal war. Potter, do you have any idea what it's like? You might have got past the war, but every day is a memory of it. I'm never going to escape. I froze suddenly. Fuck me. Oh, fuck me. I'd said that out loud. That hadn't been in my head. Here it comes. He'll hit me now. Maybe with the Crucius curse. Maybe he'll just punch me. Malfoys don't blab their feelings. Malfoys keep them to themselves. I tensed, awaiting a sharp pain that I knew would come in seconds now. I heard the floorboards creaking as he came around to my side of the bed, then a weight beside me as he sat down. I could almost see the variousness glint in his eye that had been present whenever Lucius walked past me after I'd told my parents about my sexuality. My mind turned to mush as I felt warm arms around me, soft breathing. He rubbed circles on my back. Definitely not what I had been expecting. Quite the opposite, actually. I opened my eyes suddenly and hadn't even realized I was crying again. On their own accord, my arms went around his torso. I lay their head on his shoulder. Can't do this, Potter. I can't. Leave me alone. Get out. But I also couldn't move away. I couldn't detach myself. There was no way I was detaching myself. Again, I cried into his shoulder as he sat there silent and understanding. I suppose he knew what this was like. No doubt, him, Weasley, and Granger had held each other like this, aiding each other as they put the war behind them. Wait, Potter knows I'm gay now. The thought struck like a bolt of lightning in my brain. I leapt back out of the embrace and off of the bed, backing off weirdly. What else had I said? You know? My voice shook, half strangled by tears. I cursed myself for how weak I sounded, how vulnerable the words were. He frowned, the anger of his eyes gone, possibly never even there, replaced by a look of sympathy. No, what? He looked utterly lost. I couldn't tell if he was really oblivious or trying to get me to embrace myself for the second time. I decided that he wouldn't do the latter, not if he wanted to be on friendly terms so badly. That I'm gay. I could barely speak the words. They sounded like poison on my tongue. All my life, I'd been taught that my relationship that wasn't male and female was disgusting, wrong, against nature. Then here I was, an abomination myself. It was quite a rude awakening, really, and probably the last thing I would ever want to hear. Gay? Malfoy, I don't care. Sexuality doesn't mean anything to me. Why would it? I don't see why anyone would treat anyone else different just because of who they like. It just doesn't make any sense. Anyway, it'd be a bit awkward if I did, since I live with my godfather and his husband. He smiled at the end, shaking his head, then looked up at me, still smiling. Of course, Perfect Potter was accepting of me. Was there anything about him that wasn't either loyal, kind, or caring? Apparently not. His little speech had cemented my decision for me, even if I had been on the borderline of accepting anyway. He deserved at least a chance. To hell with what my family would say. One chance won't hurt. Potter, I'll consider this truce between us. I don't think I can be bothered fighting anymore either. Him speaking had given him a little time to study my voice. When I when I next glanced up, I was almost blinded by his smile. That fucking gorgeous smile I'd only ever seen from a distance. I'd caused that smile. Me. Hopefully this wouldn't all turn out to be another mistake. Hi, what do you think of this so far? I'll try to update about twice a week, but I can't make a proper schedule as of just now. Please leave votes and comments. I'd love to know what you think. Okay. I have to end it here. Thank you guys for watching. Give it a big thumbs up and comment down below which your favorite part was. Put on push notifications if you haven't, and subscribe if you haven't done that either. Be happy, be healthy, and always be loving. I love you guys so much. Bye bye.